There is a silence that doesn't protect you. A silence that doesn't build trust. It erodes it. And yet, that silence, so often confused with strength or control, speaks louder than any word you could ever say. Because the longer you stay silent, the deeper she feels it, not in her ears, but in her chest. In the space where connection was supposed to grow. Let's get one thing straight. Silence isn't always mystery. Sometimes it's abandonment dressed in elegance. Sometimes it's emotional cowardice posing as composure. You may think silence makes you powerful, that holding back gives you control, but power without connection is isolation. Control without compassion is coldness. She feels every word you didn't say, every truth you buried, every emotion you left unspoken. She notices when the air gets heavy after she opens up. She hears what you don't say when she tells you her fears. And the worst part, she starts blaming herself for your silence. Maybe I'm too much. Maybe I'm not enough. Not because she's weak, but because she cares. Because she listens to the quiet between your sentences, hoping for something real. Real intimacy doesn't come from grand gestures. It comes from real words. Honest conversations. Showing up not just physically but emotionally. If you want someone to stand by you, to feel safe with you, to truly trust you, then speak. Speak when it's uncomfortable. Speak when you feel exposed. Speak when everything in you wants to hide. Because silence might delay conflict, but it also delays closeness. And in that delay, you lose her piece by piece. Not in one blow, but in the slow, quiet ache of being emotionally alone beside someone who looks present but isn't. Strong doesn't mean shut off. Powerful doesn't mean unreadable. If you want her to feel you, really feel you, then meet her where she's already waiting. In truth, in presence, in vulnerability. See, you want to impress her. Don't disappear when things get real. Don't let her fill the silence with her doubts. Show her that your strength includes softness. But your backbone comes with a beating heart. You don't have to write poetry. You don't have to bare your soul in perfect language. But you do have to show up. Say the hard thing. Own your thoughts. Answer her emotions. Because when you choose silence, she doesn't just feel distance. She feels rejection. And one day, when she finally stops waiting for your voice, you'll realize that silence didn't protect anything. It only pushed away the one thing that was real. So today, speak. Not because you have to, but because she's worth it. And you are too. There's a reason why some touches feel electric and others feel empty. It's not about technique or timing, it's about presence. In a world full of distractions, emotional presence has become the rarest and most intoxicating form of intimacy. It's what separates physical interaction from emotional connection. You can be inches away from someone and still make them feel alone. But when you're fully there, undistracted, undivided, and emotionally open, it creates a space where true intimacy can breathe. She doesn't just want you to touch her body, she wants you to notice her essence. She wants to know that when you look at her, you see her. The way her voice softens when she's vulnerable. The subtle shift in her eyes when she's holding something back. The way she hesitates before asking for what she really needs. These details may seem small, but to her they mean everything. Emotional presence is the difference between sex and connection, and she can feel the difference. Most people don't realize this. She begins making love to you long before her body ever says yes. It starts when she shares a story and watches how you respond. It starts when she shows you her wounds and hopes you won't flinch. It starts in the way you listen or don't. Your silence, your focus, your distractions, they all send a message. And when she feels dismissed emotionally, she withdraws sexually, not to punish you, but to protect herself. Because when her emotional presence isn't met, her body no longer feels safe enough to open. Emotional presence means paying attention not just to her words but to her silences. It means listening without rushing to fix, responding without defensiveness. It's in the way you pause after she shares something raw. It's in the softness of your gaze when she's uncertain. Presence says, you matter. Right now, you're my entire focus. That more than any seductive move turns her on. We often misunderstand desire. We think it lives in curves and lingerie and lighting, but for her, desire begins with security. Not physical security, but emotional safety. It's when she knows she can bring her truth to you without being shut down or judged. When she knows you won't use her vulnerability against her. When she feels your attention, undivided and unhurried, she relaxes, her walls soften, and in that softening, true intimacy is born. What makes emotional presence so powerful is that it asks nothing from her body. It doesn't pressure, doesn't push, doesn't demand. It invites. It says, I see you. I'm here with you. You don't have to be anything other than what you are right now. That level of acceptance is rare. And when she feels it, her connection to you deepens. It's not just her heart that opens, it's her entire being. Too often, people show up with their hands, but not their hearts. They want access to her body, but not to her mind, not to her emotions, and she can feel it. Every woman can feel when the attention she's receiving is conditional, surface level, or performative. What she's yearning for isn't just a lover, it's someone who can hold space for all of her. The part that's fiery and loud, yes, but also the part that's uncertain, insecure, questioning. Emotional presence doesn't flinch at her complexity, it honors it. Imagine this. She's lying next to you, her body close, but her mind is drifting, not because she doesn't want you, but because she doesn't feel you. Your hands may be there, but your attention isn't. You're distracted. You're not tuned in, and she can sense it. Her body stiffens. Her breath changes. She becomes quieter, not because she's shy, but because something inside her has shut down. She's feeling alone in your presence, and that for her is worse than being physically alone. But now imagine the opposite. You're with her, fully tuned in, your eyes meet hers and linger, not to analyze but to absorb. Your touch is intentional, not just sensual. You're responding to her, not a fantasy or expectation. You notice how she exhales when she feels safe. You hear the change in her voice when she trusts you. Your words are slow, not scripted. You ask real questions. You pause to listen. You're not rushing towards sex. You're creating connection. That's what awakens her. That's what invites her into deeper intimacy. Because for her, intimacy isn't just physical, it's emotional, mental, spiritual. That's why your emotional presence matters more than you think. It's what creates the space for her to fully surrender, not in weakness but in trust. Her body opens to what her heart feels safe inside of. When she feels emotionally held, desired, heard, her sensuality unfolds naturally. There's nothing to force, nothing to perform. Intimacy becomes effortless, real, electric. It's not always what you say, it's what you don't. The loudest rejection is often wrapped in silence. She can take truth. What she can't take is disappearing into your silence. Silence can feel peaceful, but in relationships it can be punishing. It can say things you never intended to say, louder than any argument or insult. And in the context of intimacy, emotional or physical, silence becomes a mirror, reflecting back all the things she's afraid to admit. She's starting to feel unwanted, unimportant, unseen. She may never say it out loud, she might smile, pretend, move on with the conversation, but inside, she's noticing, she's calculating how long it's been since you actually responded. Really responded with emotion, with clarity, with interest. It's not about texting back faster or making more noise. It's about the weight of your emotional silence. When she needs you to show up, and when you don't, she doesn't hear quiet. She hears rejection. People often assume that rejection has to come with harsh words or a slammed door, but one of the most painful forms of rejection is when she opens herself to you and all she gets in return is distance. When she shares something vulnerable about her body, her feelings, her insecurities, and all she hears back is silence, she doesn't just feel disappointed, she feels dismissed. It's a special kind of ache, the kind that doesn't show on the surface but lingers deep beneath the skin. Emotional withdrawal in a relationship, especially in moments when intimacy is on the line, creates wounds that words alone can't fix. It's not always about being right or wrong. It's about being there, because when she reaches for connection and finds nothing, it doesn't matter what your intention was. What matters is that she had to face her desire alone, her needs alone, her fears alone. And that solitude doesn't feel strong. It feels like rejection. Sometimes silence is avoidance. It's choosing not to say the hard thing because you're afraid of conflict. But here's the reality. When you avoid the hard conversations, you also avoid the deep connections. She doesn't need you to be perfect. She needs you to be present. When you stay silent during the moments she's looking to you for reassurance, you're not just avoiding discomfort, you're sending her a message that she's on her own. In intimacy, silence can be devastating. It's the moment after she tries something new and looks to you for feedback and you say nothing. It's the evening she finally opens up about what she enjoys, what she craves, what she fears, and you're emotionally flatlined. She might still smile, she might still show up, but part of her begins to close. Not out of spite, but out of self-protection. She no longer feels emotionally safe, and when safety disappears, so does her desire to stay vulnerable. Desire doesn't thrive in uncertainty. It thrives in response. And when silence becomes the answer, it makes her question everything. Was she too much? Did she go too far? Did she say something wrong? Not because she's insecure, but because she cares. Because she's emotionally invested. Because she's hoping you'll meet her in that space where she's trying to show you her most honest self. And here's the thing, she can handle almost anything but confusion. She can handle truth, she can handle vulnerability. What she can't handle is being left in the dark. Your silence leaves her alone with her own interpretations. And the human mind, especially when emotionally exposed, often fills in silence with fear, doubt, insecurity. She doesn't just think you're being quiet, she starts believing you're pulling away. And that fear settles in her body like a warning. Intimacy is about mutual recognition. When one person goes silent, it shifts the entire dynamic. It makes her feel like she's speaking into a void, like her emotions are being swallowed by a partner who's there in body, but absent in soul. And when that happens often enough, she stops reaching out. Not because she stopped loving, but because she stopped feeling safe enough to keep trying. Every time silence follows her vulnerability, a wall builds. Invisible, but solid. Slowly, steadily, that distance grows. But if she begins to ration what she says, filters her excitement, rehearses her needs before sharing them, not because she's manipulative, but because she's trying not to be disappointed again. She's trying not to be met with that cold, heavy nothingness. And it changes everything. The way she kisses, the way she touches, the way she looks at you when you're not paying attention. Not because she's lost desire, but because silence has told her she's alone in the experience. You may believe that staying silent keeps the peace, that avoiding reaction keeps things from escalating. But peace without communication is just a performance. And in relationships, especially in intimate ones, silence becomes rejection when it replaces truth, when it replaces affection, when it replaces clarity. What she needs isn't your perfection, it's your presence, your voice, your effort to speak, even when you don't have all the right words. Because intimacy doesn't grow in silence, it grows in response. It grows when you choose to show up emotionally, consistently, even when it's uncomfortable. If you want her body to say yes, speak to her heart first. Her desire doesn't start with your touch, it starts with your tone. Foreplay begins the moment she feels emotionally understood, not just physically wanted. There is a kind of intimacy that doesn't begin in the bedroom. It begins with a conversation, with the tone of your voice, the words you choose, the way you respond when she opens up. Most people think foreplay is about what you do with your hands, but for her it starts much earlier. It starts when she hears something in your voice that makes her feel seen, wanted, safe. When she feels emotionally spoken to, her body listens, her walls drop, and what follows isn't just sex, it's connection. The most underrated form of intimacy is communication. Not just surface-level talk, but intentional, curious, emotionally present conversation. The kind where she doesn't have to guess what you're thinking. The kind where she doesn't feel judged for what she says or how she feels. When you speak with her, not at her. When you engage, not interrogate, you create a space where she can exhale. That exhale is the beginning of trust. And trust is the spark behind every powerful, intimate moment. A communication is what creates the emotional rhythm between two people. It's the dance that begins long before the music of touch plays. When she feels heard, she feels valued. When she feels valued, she opens. Not just physically, but emotionally. Her affection becomes layered, more present, more intentional, more vulnerable. And it didn't come from a seductive look or the right touch. It came from words that felt real. It came from knowing you were paying attention, that she mattered. What turns her on more than appearance, more than gestures, more than routine, is your ability to see her, not just as a body, but as a being. Communication tells her where she stands. It tells her how safe it is to let go. She notices the pauses in your voice, the warmth behind your curiosity, the absence of performance, and all of it speaks louder than touch ever could. One of the most intimate things you can do is ask her what she wants, emotionally, mentally, sensually, and truly listen to her response. Not with the intent to fix or change or impress, but with the intent to understand. Most people don't ask, or if they do, they ask with a tone that feels mechanical, disconnected, obligatory. She feels that. She knows when you're going through motions versus genuinely trying to connect. There's something deeply erotic about being listened to have someone's full attention. No phone, no rush, no ego. Just presence. That's the kind of energy that makes her melt before she's ever touched. That's what makes her feel like she's wanted in her fullness, not just as a figure but as a whole woman. Her mind begins to relax, her nervous system settles, and in that stillness, desire grows. Too many people underestimate how important it is to talk before, during, and after intimacy. What she enjoys, what she doesn't, what makes her feel beautiful, what makes her feel desired. The most powerful intimacy is co-created, not assumed. When you communicate, you're building a blueprint for pleasure, not just yours, but hers. And when she sees you care about her experience, her pleasure, her emotions, she gives more. She surrenders, not from pressure, but from comfort, from trust. Your words linger, even more than your touch. A single compliment, said with intention, can stay with her for days. A well-timed affirmation, something as simple as "I love when you let go like that," or "You're so beautiful when you're vulnerable," can light up parts of her that no physical act ever could. Because it's not just about what you say, it's how it lands in her body. When your words create safety, they become foreplay, they become permission, they become ignition. And when the communication fades, so does the connection. She starts to wonder what's missing. She starts to fill in the gaps with assumptions. Maybe she's not enough. Maybe you're bored. Maybe she's doing too much or too little. Not because she wants to overthink, but because the absence of words leaves too much room for confusion. And confusion is the enemy of intimacy. Talk to her before you touch her. Speak to her as if her heart is part of the experience. Let her know what you love about her, not just what you want from her. Ask what lights her up, not just in bed but in life. Notice how her body reacts when you speak with kindness, with truth, with presence. You'll start to see that communication isn't just the prelude to sex. It's the foundation of all intimacy. The difference between physical access and emotional invitation is how you speak. You don't need to be poetic. You don't need to say everything perfectly, but you do need to be real, honest, present. That's what she responds to. That's what creates the atmosphere where true connection can unfold. Because for her, words are not just sound. They are safety. They are seduction. They are surrender. Vulnerability isn't what weakens intimacy. It's what unlocks it. If you want her to open up physically, she has to feel you emotionally. Your ability to be seen is what gives her permission to do the same. There's nothing more disarming than someone who lets themselves be fully seen, not masked, not edited, not filtered through strength or performance, but raw, real, present. And while so many are obsessed with appearing in control, calm, and confident, what she actually craves is your capacity to be vulnerable. You might think that letting your guard down makes you weak, that showing emotion might somehow shrink your value or power, but in intimacy, it does the opposite. Vulnerability is strength in its most human form. It's honesty without armor. It's being able to sit across from her and say, "This is where I'm scared. This is what I don't know. This is what I hope." And when you do that, something shifts in her. Her walls begin to lower, not because you forced them down, but because you earned your way in. She doesn't want someone perfect. She wants someone present, someone who isn't afraid to sit in their own discomfort, someone who doesn't hide behind emotional silence or cold detachment. She wants to feel you, not just see your face or hear your voice, but to actually sense what's real underneath all the surface. And that only happens when you allow yourself to go there, when you stop performing and start connecting. There's nothing more intimate than watching someone unfold without fear of being judged, and that includes you. When you share the parts of yourself you usually keep tucked away, the doubts, the insecurities, the fears, the dreams, you give her permission to do the same. You're not just being honest, you're being brave. And bravery like that, it's magnetic. It creates trust. It makes her want to go deeper with you, because you've shown her that it's safe to be human here. Vulnerability in relationships doesn't just happen in the big emotional moments. It's woven into the quiet spaces. It's in the way you tell her when something hurt your feelings, instead of pretending you're fine. It's in the way you admit you don't have it all figured out. It's in the way you let her see behind the confidence and control into the part of you that's still learning, still healing, still growing. And here's what most people don't realize. Emotional vulnerability is deeply erotic, not because it's dramatic or theatrical, but because it's real. It's one of the most powerful forms of seduction. Why? Because she doesn't just want to touch your skin. She wants to feel your truth. She wants to know that when you're with her, you're with her. Not performing, not proving, just being fully, boldly, unapologetically human. When you try to protect yourself by staying emotionally guarded, she doesn't feel strength. She feels distance. And that distance becomes a silent wedge between your bodies. It interrupts the flow of closeness. It puts pressure on her to be the one who always reaches out, always connects, always brings the emotion. That imbalance slowly chips away at intimacy. It makes her feel like she's dancing alone. But when you let her in, when you tell her what keeps you up at night, or what you're still working through, or what makes you feel small sometimes, she doesn't look at you as weak. She looks at you as real. She sees your depth. She respects your honesty. And most importantly, she feels trusted. And when a woman feels trusted, her own vulnerability blooms. Her affection becomes unfiltered. Her sensuality flows without fear. In relationships, especially the ones where real intimacy matters, vulnerability is not optional. It's essential, because without it, everything becomes surface level. You might go through the motions, share a bed, exchange affection, but something will always feel like it's missing. That invisible wall of emotional distance keeps the relationship from ever reaching its full depth. Sometimes vulnerability looks like saying, "That made me feel small," or "I'm afraid to lose you," or "I've never told anyone this before." And when those words are said with sincerity, they don't weaken you, they bind you closer. They say, "I trust you enough to be seen." And that's what makes her lean in, not out of pity, but out of connection, out of recognition. Because when you reveal what's true, she feels less alone in your own fears and insecurities. There's an incredible kind of intimacy that only exists on the other side of shared vulnerability. It's quiet, but it's powerful. It's when you're no longer afraid of what the other person will think, when you can be naked emotionally, not just physically. When the intimacy becomes more than bodies meeting, it becomes souls seeing each other. She doesn't need grand gestures. She doesn't need perfect answers. What she needs is to know you're not afraid to show up in your fullness, that you won't disappear when things get emotionally intense, that you won't shut down when it's uncomfortable. Because that emotional steadiness, that willingness to be exposed, is what builds the trust she needs to fully let go. And in that release, something beautiful happens. She doesn't just feel wanted, she feels understood. Intimacy doesn't only live in touch, it lives in the pauses between. It's not what you do to her body, it's how you hold space for her heart between the moments. She remembers the silence you filled with presence, not pressure. There's a quiet space in every intimate moment that most people overlook. It's not the kiss, it's not the climax, it's not even the words, it's the in-between, the stillness right after a confession, the breath right before a touch, the silence after she lets her guard down. That's where real intimacy lives, not just in what you do, but in what you allow. And if you're paying attention, you'll see that it's those exact moments that shape her experience more than anything else. The spaces between aren't empty, they're filled with her reading you, feeling you, deciding in real time whether this is a space where she can relax or one where she has to protect herself. And you may never hear her say it, but she's constantly noticing what happens in the moments when nothing is happening, when you pause, when you wait, when you just breathe with her. Those are the moments that make her body feel safe, her heart feel heard, and her trust begin to expand. Intimacy isn't just about action, it's about atmosphere. And the atmosphere is built in the in-between. When there's no rush, no agenda, no expectation, just presence, just you, noticing her, feeling her energy, letting her feel yours. This is where connection becomes deeper than skin. This is where her mind begins to quiet. This is where desire doesn't have to be pulled, it starts to flow. There's something powerful about the way she responds when she feels like she's not being rushed, not being watched like a performance, not being pressured to match your pace. Instead, she feels like she's being held without even being touched. She starts to unfold, not because she's being asked to, but because the energy invites her to. And that unfolding is where the deepest kind of intimacy begins. When she speaks, and you pause, absorb, and respond gently, not with fixes but with presence, she feels it in her chest. When you look at her without needing to turn it into something else, she feels appreciated, not assessed. When you slow down in the middle of a passionate moment just to be with her, not to escalate, not to control, she doesn't just feel pleasure, she feels safe, and safety for her is everything. Women often learn to read the in-between out of survival. The quick glance away, the distracted breathing, the change in tone, the lack of pause. These things don't go unnoticed. She may not say it out loud, but she's feeling it all. And if she starts to sense that those spaces are being filled with distance, with pressure, with absence, something in her starts to pull back, not to reject you, but to protect herself. But when those in-between spaces are filled with presence, eye contact, gentle stillness, mindful breath, she leans in, her body starts to trust yours. Her emotions start to feel safe in the same space as your touch. And that's the difference between performance and intimacy. Performance impresses the surface. Presence unlocks the soul. The beauty of intimacy is that it doesn't ask for constant motion. It asks for conscious motion. Slowness is not laziness. It's attentiveness. It's choosing to feel what's unfolding instead of rushing toward what you want to happen. She doesn't want to race to the end. She wants an experience, a memory, a space where she didn't have to rush her breath, silence her thoughts, or pretend she wasn't feeling uncertain. She wants to know that the quiet parts of her are welcome. Even during the most intense, passionate moments, she's still listening to the energy in the room. She's still feeling how your body responds to hers. She notices if you go quiet after she says something vulnerable. She feels the way you slow your pace after she shares something soft, and she stores that, not just in her mind, but in her body. Her nervous system begins to associate you with safety, with presence, with trust. And when that happens, her intimacy deepens. Her expression becomes unfiltered. Her confidence grows, not because you told her to be confident, but because you gave her space where nothing needed to be perfect. The pauses became proof that she didn't have to perform, that she could simply be, and in that being, she found freedom. Sometimes the most arousing thing isn't a touch, a word, or a move. It's the moment when you stop everything and just look at her. Not for what she can do, but for who she is. It's the part where you breathe together, where nothing is happening, but everything is being felt. That's where she falls. That's where she remembers you. The in-between is the part most skip because they're afraid of stillness, afraid that if something isn't being said or done, the moment will disappear. But what if that moment is the relationship? What if it's the pause that builds anticipation, the silence that deepens the bond, the softness that holds her? She isn't just reading your words, she's reading your energy. When you stop speaking, she's remembering how your hands slow down when she closes her eyes. She's feeling the way your presence wraps around her, even when you're not saying a thing. And it's in those still, quiet, tender seconds that the real closeness is born. When she feels safe, she doesn't hold back. She comes alive. Emotional safety is the gate through which her deepest intimacy flows. If she can trust you with her feelings, she'll give you her body without hesitation. There's a kind of intimacy that can't be taught in words or technique. It grows in the space where she feels completely safe. And that safety doesn't come from how strong you are or how good you look. It comes from clarity, from consistency, from the emotional stability you bring to the connection. When she knows what you feel, what you want, and how you see her, without having to guess, decode, or beg for it, she lets go. She releases. She softens. And in that softening, her truest, most magnetic, most sensual self emerges. So many people think desire is about mystery, about keeping someone guessing. The truth is, too much mystery kills intimacy. When she has to wonder where she stands, whether you're truly invested or what your silence means, she pulls back not because she wants to, but because her body won't let her fully relax. Her nervous system stays on alert. Her mind stays busy. And a woman whose heart and mind are busy analyzing can't fully surrender to the moment. Not emotionally, not sexually. Emotional safety is the foundation of intimacy. It doesn't show up in grand gestures or poetic promises. It shows up in the small things, answering honestly, even when it's uncomfortable, checking in with her feelings, not just her body, being consistent with your energy, not one version of yourself today and another tomorrow. That clarity makes her feel held in ways even physical touch can't. It tells her, you are not an emotional burden here. You don't have to shrink. You don't have to hide. And that message changes everything. When a woman no longer feels the need to censor herself, she expands in conversation, in affection, in the bedroom. Her body speaks louder when her spirit doesn't feel silenced. You'll see it in the way she reaches for you, in the way she speaks more freely, in the way she explores her own desires around you, not with fear of being judged, but with the confidence that you'll meet her in those vulnerable places, with presence, not performance. Safety, for her, is not about being protected from the world. It's about being protected within the relationship, protected from emotional neglect, from confusion, from dismissal. When she tells you something hard and you don't minimize it or make it about you, she relaxes. When you acknowledge her emotional experience without trying to edit it, she feels accepted, and that acceptance becomes the ground from which her passion grows. One of the most arousing things to her is knowing that she doesn't have to hold it all together in front of you, that she can cry and not be seen as dramatic, that she can admit insecurity and not be treated as needy, that she can voice a desire, any desire, and be met with curiosity instead of criticism. The moment she realizes she can bring her whole self to you, the deeper parts of her start to awaken. Clarity is where this safety begins. Not clarity in perfection, but in communication. She doesn't need you to have it all figured out. She needs you to say where you are, what you feel, what you want. She doesn't need flawless answers. She needs honest ones. When you make her guess your feelings, She starts questioning hers. When you're vague about what you want, she becomes guarded about what she gives. But when you're clear, it signals stability. It tells her the ground beneath her is solid, that she can exhale, that she doesn't have to read between the lines to find your truth. Desire can't breathe in confusion. She might still show up, she might still go through the motions, but something in her will be half withheld. She'll give you her time, maybe her body, but not the full surrender that only comes when she feels completely emotionally secure. That surrender isn't about weakness, it's about trust. It's about knowing that opening up won't cost her later, that she won't be punished for her feelings or dismissed for her needs. The wild feminine energy inside her, the one that's expressive, confident, passionate, only steps forward when it knows it's safe. If she senses instability, mixed signals, emotional absence, or cold detachment, she withdraws. Not always physically, but emotionally. Her sensuality doesn't disappear, it goes dormant, and it takes more than romance to bring it back. It takes presence, it takes consistent reassurance. Not through scripted affirmations, but through actions, tone, timing, and trust. A woman doesn't ask for emotional clarity because she wants to control you. She asks for it because she wants to relax into the experience, to stop carrying the emotional weight of the connection alone, to stop wondering if she's loving more, giving more, hoping more. Clarity levels the playing field. It tells her, you're not alone in this. That's what makes her feel safe enough to be real, raw, and unguarded. She doesn't need to be told she's safe. She needs to feel it in the way you speak, in the way you stay calm during her vulnerability, in the way you keep showing up even when she's unsure. That reliability, that energetic steadiness is what gives her permission to open, to explore, to express herself without monitoring your reaction. And when she feels that, everything changes, not just in the way she connects with you, but in the way she sees herself through your eyes. Her voice becomes louder, her laughter becomes more free, her touch becomes more intentional, because now she's not performing for acceptance. She's expressing from a place of being already accepted. And that's where the deepest, most intoxicating kind of intimacy begins to unfold.